Okay, let's go.
Welcome to the Psychology of Health. It's never been easier to be in amazing shape. So why is it such a struggle? This problem, it isn't a lack of information. It's behaviour. Sleep more, move more, eat better. That shit isn't rocket science, but it seems to be getting harder and harder. So what is the missing ingredient? It's psychology. The identity you hold shapes your behaviours, whether you want to admit it or not. My behaviour told a story of someone who wasn't worth looking after. That nearly broke me. I didn't even know that my actions were recreating an identity that wasn't even mine. This show is about changing that identity so that you can build agency through your health. I'm your host, Mitch Parkins, and this is the Psychology of Health. Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Yes. Welcome back to the Psychology of Health podcast. This is a special one I'm very, very excited for. Introducing the man, the myth, the legend, Condon. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How am I going to come back from that?
It's been a while since we actually recorded the first chat. We've had probably every uncontrollable flu, cold, COVID strain just ripped through this house since we last caught up. How have you been?
Yeah, we're in the middle of something at the moment as well, mate. It's what it's like with kids, isn't it? You do what you can.
Yeah, I have actually enjoyed it because it has helped me just reaffirm this journey that we're on and doing everything we can to avoid the type of sickness that you can control, because it's no fun when you don't have your health. It's absolutely rubbish.
I think I've got something sick in my mind, because when it rains or when I get sick or something like that, that is actually when I get super amped to train. And I don't know why, but it's like in my head, I'm competing with someone else and I'm like, they fucking slept in today. They didn't do it, but I did it. I don't know.
Yes.
It's just weird.
It's like running uphill.
Yeah, exactly. Go faster.
Yeah. You know someone's sleeping in. I like it. Well, mate, for those who don't know or who didn't hear the first one, obviously you are the host of my favorite podcast and the co-founder of the Cashflow Co. We've done an episode, Brooke and I, with you, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But, mate, the Money Minded podcast, very top line, in a sentence, what is it for people who want to learn more about what it is that you do?
It's in the title, really. Money Minded.
Yeah.
I mean, in a similar way to yourself here, the Psychology of Health, it's very much about the psychology of money. And so I guess the mindset of money, but then also it's how do you take that understanding and start applying it to your own life to figure out what works best for you? I guess our premise and our promise is that the best way to get a result in any endeavor is not to do what you're told. It's to figure out what works best for you. My background's coaching, you know this, and I never met anybody that made the Olympics going to Les Mills on a Sunday. You have a personalized program, you figure out what works best for you, and you do that through deliberate practice. And so, the Money Minded project is really about changing that narrative, right? There's so much of that in personal finance where I just follow my prescription. Same with health, same with nutrition. There's so many prescriptions out there because frankly, it's easy to sell a prescription. It doesn't require you to think. And that is the problem. That is the problem.
Yeah. If I was to say a prescription of what you do, and I know it's not this, but it is helping people escape the rat race. Fundamentally, if I was to put it in a bow, explain what you do for people, you help them ultimately live a life on their terms. So it is a very exciting space for me as someone that's kind of obsessed with controlling their own destiny. So there you go.
Yeah, you did a better job of promoting than me, mate. That's right. I wouldn't have said that when we started it, but it's essentially what we've ended up doing. We attract the kind of people that don't have average goals. They're not looking to just do a little bit better. They want to live life on their own terms, and they're willing to do what's required to make that happen, similar to yourself and Brooke. And I freaking love it. I mean, I used to do this work in sport and see people achieve. And now just watching people in their lives go and do things like you guys went and traveled around Australia in 2024. Sorry if I'm just a little bit hyped up today. I'm just fucking love that stuff. I love seeing people I love seeing people do things they didn't think they could do. And I don't care what domain it's in.
That's the insight, right? Like as a coach, you want to help people realize things that they didn't even know were possible for them. It doesn't get any more exciting than that.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't get any more exciting. I just want to give a bit of context to the listener of how we actually met. Rewind, maybe 7 or 8 years. You were fresh out of sport. You didn't know what you were doing at that time. Truth be told, you were working it out, and it was epic to actually witness this. So, because I can only see it in hindsight, right? I can only connect those dots for you in hindsight. You were at the front of a room of a bunch of high performers who had been handpicked to be coached by you to progress their careers while I was at Sportsbet. And you must have been like months or, weeks out of your time at sport, coaching all of us on really how to get the best out of ourselves. It massively lit this fire in me that has been burning ever since, which was just work out how to do life on your terms. You had this voracious zest for learning, which was so contagious and really, like, you opened my eyes on so many fronts, but so critically were the approach to learning and helping people work out how to learn. Do you just want to give just like a bit of flavor on that? Because, learning ladders are something that I'm still using that are now burnt in my brain. And I just feel like it's such a fundamental skill that we don't talk enough about.
That's so good. That's so cool to hear. Yes, you're so right.
Oh,
too,
mate, it was so cool to witness. It was so cool to witness.
Literally making it up on the spot, just kind of like, how can I help? Not making it up on the spot. Like I was trying to figure out how do I apply the tools and what has worked for me that I think could work for others, basically.
Which was epic. Explain the learning ladder. How do people learn? How should people approach learning? Because I think health comprises of 1,000 skills, and the learning ladder is something that I kind of want to gift the listener with across various aspects of health. So I got it from you. I think you should share what a learning ladder is and how they actually help people achieve things they never thought possible. Because I've used plenty since.
Yeah, so I can only say this in hindsight now, but if I give you just what's underneath the learning ladder, I probably couldn't have given language to this at the time. And it's something that's gotten more and more explicit. What's underneath the learning ladder, just what it is a way to get better at anything. Whatever you want to get better at, it's a way to, if you think about it, program your mind to get better at that thing. So you remember that scene in The Matrix where he's like, he plugs in the disc and he ends up like learning Kung Fu, and he's like, oh, I know Kung Fu. In my head, when I come up with a learning ladder, I'm like, that is the program where you can just put this, if you put it in this disc and the disc goes in this way and it goes in that hard drive, how do you upload knowledge and expertise and skills into your brain, basically? And so that was like the thinking behind it. But what I understand now that I didn't have words for then is like how your brain actually learns. And I think we've all grown up in this society where we think that knowledge is learning, and it's just not. Like, if knowledge was learning, if you're listening to this podcast, then why don't you already have the results that you want when it comes to health? Because I guarantee you've got the knowledge. It's actually fucking simple. You want to move more, right? And ingest less. That is it. And that just, if I even simplify it even further, it's breathe out more and take in less. Breathe out more and take in less. That is all you need to know.
Yeah.
But the way to figure out how to make that work for you is just to get a result and observe the result and iterate your approach. So your brain is what we call cybernetic, which means that it's a problem-solving, goal-seeking mechanism. Your brain wants to get better. So the reason you're listening to this podcast right now is because there's some sort of open loop in your brain which is telling you, I need to collect more, I need to learn more about in this space, and I'm interested in this. That's an open loop in your brain. That's your brain dragging you, drawing you towards something. And so how do you speed up learning? There's something called an OODA loop, which is, I think it was his name was Captain John Boyd, and he was in the military, he was in the Air Force. I think it was World War II or something like that. And he sort of coined this OODA loop concept. And the idea is observe, orient, decide, and act. And then from the outcomes, you observe the outcomes, orient again, decide, and act. And it's that loop. That is how your brain is learning anything. And the faster you can cycle through that loop, the faster you learn, because you don't learn anything on a page. And trust me, I love the process of learning and reading and those sort of things. That doesn't matter. What I've learned, and I've flipped the learning ladder, it used to start at the bottom and now it starts at the top. And I've kind of reverse engineered it the other way because I've just understood that, like, the sooner you get a result, the faster you know what you need to know, right? And so the learning ladder is essentially 3 steps. And the steps are immersive learning, interactive learning, and independent learning in that order. It used to be the opposite. It used to be independent, interactive, and immersive. And it's now immersive, interactive, and independent. And just quickly to explain each of those steps, immersive learning is you actually doing something to get a result. So I think of it like an experiment. What do I need to do? So if I want to get better at, for example, public speaking, which is ironically when I met you, my learning ladder was public speaking and presenting and that sort of stuff.
Public
so I'm sitting there
speaking,
like,
yeah.
I'm getting paid to learn the skill, right?
Yep.
But I'm literally like, how do I put myself in the environment to do the thing? Because you don't know what you need to know until you get an outcome. And if you start at the bottom and you go, I need to know everything before I do anything, you just waste a bunch of time. And again, I learned that lesson the hard way. Just don't do it. Like before I did an MBA, I read, honestly, 300 business books. Went and did an MBA, did all that before I started a business. Should have just started a business.
Yep.
So I've learned way more from just starting a business and doing business than actually learning about business. And so immersive learning is you putting yourself in the arena, doing something. It does, and it's not the job of the immersive learning is not to get it right. The job is to learn and understand. There's something in sport called a scrimmage. And a scrimmage, it's a very, very useful tool for building self-awareness. If you want to know what you want to get better at, you run a scrimmage to actually see what you're not so good at. Okay. And it's only through that process that you go, we need to pinpoint A, B, and C. That's what we need to pinpoint to get better at. And so when I think about immersive learning, I think about it like a scrimmage. This isn't about me performing or getting the outcome or anything like that. It's about me throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then going, okay, step back? What do I need to do now? And more importantly, what do I need to know? And now I move up the ladder and I go into the second rung. The second rung, I called it immersive learning. That's where you put yourself in the room of people who have done what you want to do, are doing what you want to do, or are one step behind you. You want one up, someone who's a peer, someone who's a mentor, and someone that you can mentor. And so immersive learning is that. You learning from someone who's already been there, done that, and conversing and collaborating with people who are like walking the path with you, and then sharing what you're learning on the way. Because how do you internalize learning is teaching. Teach somebody else what you're learning as you do it. And so immersive learning is that, putting yourself in that room, because learning is actually a social phenomenon. Yeah. And so that's you. If you think about it, the job of immersive learning is sense making, because you got results at the immersive rung. In the middle, you need to make sense of those results. And you remember I said before with the OODA loop, orient, decide. It's the orient and decide part, because in the middle, you're discussing, guiding, discuss and decide basically. Whereas the immersive part is like act, assess, and then it's like discuss and decide what you want to do with that information. And then you go up to the top rung, and that's your independent rung. And independent is, what can I learn from people who have put stuff out there, who have taken the time to collate their learnings, to put it into a body of work that can help me answer what I need to know just for now, not just in case learning, but just for now. Like I need to know that right now. And doing that loop, cycling up and down that loop as fast as you possibly can, that's how you can very systematically get good at anything.
So you have served as my mentor in that process to fundamentally understand what is getting in the way of people making the changes that they actually want. And ultimately, that's what we want to answer today. So, why have I not changed even though I want to? That's what we really want to unpack. And there isn't a person on this planet who I'm more excited to actually have a conversation with about change than you. So, I think, as you can just grasp, Terry's approach to learning really represents his approach to life. He doesn't do it by accident. And the process of creating change in people is not an accident. I know you've spent more time studying what makes people change than anyone I've ever met. And I would imagine one of the most highly studied people on this topic in the planet. And I felt that knowledge. I've experienced it in my own life. So I've got to try and do my absolute best to eke out as much of that IQ today to help people ultimately make the changes that they want to their health that they're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a frustrating place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest.
It definitely is. Definitely.
And really, it is a huge challenge for people when it comes to their health. I think a little bit of context. Obviously, we could label you like a finance coach or a financial expert or a coach, just period, full stop. That helps people use money as a tool to create the life they want. What you really helped me see is that I was playing the wrong games in the wrong way, really trying to buy back my time as aggressively as I could, but it was at the expense of my health. The volume of work, the impact on my sleep cycles, 6 a.m. flights, the midnight finishes, all the things that I now really understand intricately just wreak havoc on your health if you're being very intentional and deliberate with it that you can get away with in your 20s. You're not going to get away with it in your 40s. It's a challenge for people, right? So if I was to ask you the question, like, why are you so obsessed with change? What's the answer? Where did this obsession with helping people change come from?
I've thought about this a lot. So I would say I was 7 years old when I started to want to know and understand about change. And it's a very visceral memory for me. So I'm 7 years old and I watch my mum walk out of our house, one version of herself, and then walk back into our house, a completely different human. Like a completely different human. And the trajectory of her life and my memory of her and who she was is just like, I was like, that's a stranger. Who is that person? You know? And unfortunately, this wasn't necessarily all like a positive change. She walked out of our house, had some sort of spiritual or religious experience, and literally came back like a fundamentalist Catholic. And I, in a sense, lost a version of my mum on that day because I never got it back.
Wow.
And so it feels like if I'm really mining my subconscious, like where did this obsession with change come from? You know, I believe everybody has a central question in their life that drives them. And if I trace it right back to its source, that's when I started asking myself the question, how do people change? And more importantly, how do I help them change, but not for the worse, but for the better? Because I watched what happens. I watched it happen the other way around. And I love my mom, right? But I got to be honest, I don't know my mom. She doesn't know me. She never, after that point in time, like she was just a completely different person. And that might be, it could be my childlike brain kind of perceiving that. And, you know, we were a lot more categorical when we're kids and things like that. Yeah, it's been like that since then. So my whole life, it's almost like I feel like I've got this karmic debt to be like, you need to answer this question, you know? And maybe some of it's about trying to get my mum back, or it's like, how do I make sure this doesn't happen to somebody else? I don't know what it is, but that question, it's an insatiable curiosity. Like it's just insatiable. There's no amount of information that you can give me that would satisfy my thirst for trying to understand that question. So hopefully that answers the question. It's not a pleasant story, but it is what drives the change.
It's very full on. What I can say is that your obsession with what makes someone change on a dime, obviously it's come out of a place that, as you've described, isn't necessarily all beautiful smelling roses, but your ability to change other people on the dime for the better. I've felt it. I've experienced it. The Life by Design moment where, man, like, how do you even have words to describe that feeling where everything changes? Like everything changes. Every perception you hold of yourself, every perception you hold of the world, your position in the world, like you just have this fundamental ability in that moment, which, you know, I'm so happy I received, but I also feel so empowered to understand what goes into that to help people see life and their life for what it truly is. It's like, how do you describe, or how would you describe the ability for someone to bottle that pleasure and pain and really tap into the power of identity in that moment? What is that crucible that you kind of put people under?
Crucible.
I almost call it like a life headlock. It's like a life headlock where you really get the sense of like what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah.
How do you describe that?
You know what? It's again, I'm going to bring it back to my mum. So my mum's been my greatest teacher. She's been my greatest teacher. So this is weird. This is amazing that you've kind of asked me this way, but my mum has had cancer 3 times, right? And the first time she had cancer, I was 14, and it's a relatively severe form of cancer. It's a cancer that people die from. And, you know, it was declared to be terminal when she was 14. Now I was probably a little bit too young at that point in time to really grasp what that meant. But later on, the second and third times, that's when I was starting to become old enough to really understand. And there was one time where I was called home from work. I was working in the AFL at the time, and I was called home and the doctors said to me, you don't go back to work because you'll miss your mum's death. She's going to die here, and she's going to die in the next 2 weeks. And, you know, you hear people talk about deathbed and that sort of thing. You hear people talk about it. I've stood at the deathbed. I know what that feels like. And I grieved for my mum, the loss of life. Like, you know, I said before, she changed, but not necessarily. Like, there's so much that happened in that period of time from that change when I was 7 till the time where I was told she's going to die. And I know what that looks like in someone's face when they know it. I know what it looks like. And it just hammered home the point to me. You only got one thing here. You got the time that you have. you don't like, this is all done whenever. We all act like time is abundant and money and all these other things are sort of scarce, and we run around chasing all these things, but your fucking time is scarce. And for me, my definitions of success is dying with zero regrets, because I know what that looks like. I just don't know, but it just did something to me where I'm like, you don't have time to fuck around. What are you doing? Like, why do you act like, oh, it's not too bad? If you want to change it, then change it. And you said before, like, why do people not change even though they want to? I would say they actually don't want to, because if you want to change, if you think about it really deeply, just for a second, just reflect on this for a second. Anything that you really want to have achieved, you actually have achieved. Anything you really, really wanted to achieve, you made it happen. So if it's not where you want it to be, it's because you don't want it, or you don't want it enough. And so if I'm to sit there and try to encapsulate what's going on in that conversation, that life by design thing, what I'm helping you do is want it, and want it enough, right? Something humans have, which is very specific to us, that no other animal has, is something called prospection, the ability to project ourselves forward into the future. And if you can do that and you can project yourself forward into the future, your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and that. Because if I can paint those pictures vivid enough for you, your nervous system doesn't know the difference. It's sitting in the same place. It's simulating that reality. And when we have that conversation, I'm asking questions that get so specific, get so granular, that I'm trying to create those pictures in your mind. And the trick of it is, whatever we're trying to achieve, I want to align it to what you care about, right? What do you care about? Because every brain, like, there's this concept called teleology, which is the study of meaning and purpose. And it's from really ancient Greece. And if you think about it, everyone has things they value a lot. And you don't have to value health, for example, but if you align health with what you're valuing, you can make almost anything. There's a guy called John DeMartini who's done a lot of work in this space. And he is the first one who sort of really codified this and said, everyone has this hierarchy of values. And if you can understand that hierarchy of values and then put what you really want to achieve beside that, you can create a lot of meaning for that. And for you guys, for you and Brooke, the big value for you, connection with the connected family, outdoors. You know, you guys were talking about wanting to do that big trip, wanting to break out of asking yourself when this good stuff could happen. And health is like really a byproduct of this journey. And I didn't even know when we're having this conversation, this penny was dropping for you, because I'm not telling you what to want. I'm just helping you figure out what you actually want.
That's right.
And that conversation goes so many different places, man. Like, you've done a bunch of these. I've done thousands of these now, and it goes in so many different directions. Like, I had one last week where I sat down with a couple who they have like a creative business. By the end of that conversation, they were like, we're building a not-for-profit around helping kids with disability be better included in all the environments they're in. We're going to be building that not-for-profit. And they're like, where the fuck did that come from? Where did that come from? I was like, I don't know. If you care about it, I'm going to get it out of you. So the answer to the question is, why haven't you changed? Because you don't want it enough, and you got to figure out what you do really want and how does health align with it. For me, health is just, it's the source of everything else. It's the source of everything else. If you're healthy and vital, there's nothing you can't do. So it's really easy to align those two things and just go, make it the keystone, right? And this is what I love about health, is that it's an area of life where if you create change in this, you start to invalidate all those ideas about who you think you are and what you think you can do. And what happens is those ripple out. They ripple out. And you can start to see people go, I started with this kind of health journey, and now look at what I'm doing now. And they're not the same, but that's what I think is cool about health.
Hello, hosting the psychology of health.
Exactly.
Without that ripple effect, we're not here having this conversation. Man, the big thing for me that came out of it was like, there's two main sources of energy attached to creation. One is like, as what Vicky Robbins would describe, your life energy, your currency, your cash flow. And the other one is really you, like the source of your ability to drive the cash flow. Like, it is your vitality, your energy, your ability to produce, to create anything. To me, they're as equally important. And what I realized in that moment was that I only had importance on finances, and really the importance that I had on my health at that moment in time was purely about my ego, just being able to lift a certain amount, or, have a certain, it was just rubbish. It wasn't health at all. It was literally just basically it was ego. It was all attached to ego, as opposed to actually making sure that I could do the things I wanted with my life.
Yeah.
and realizing how stupid the trades were that I was making. Yeah, thanks for that, mate. It was pretty
It's a
powerful.
pleasure, mate. Yeah. I love how you said it's a life.
If you are
life
interested,
headlock.
mate,
It's
it was a
funny.
life headlock. It totally was. Really, that's the
I'm
best
just
way to
curious. I
describe
just
it.
want to throw back to you for a second. What is it about?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it
Play host for a bit. You're not very used to that.
Yeah. What is it about that the metaphor is headlock? Is it just that you can't not look at the truth there? Like, what is it about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. You're in it. You're like in the hurt locker. If you've ever been in a true headlock or a position where like you can't get out, you have to confront that place, that pain, that reality of not living into your potential or not ultimately building the life that you fundamentally want. And you fundamentally have to confront the fact that it is on you.
Yeah.
It is on you to make the change. Like, it's not outside you. It's not really, for us, it wasn't so much any more information. It was like, we have to start making decisions.
Yeah.
We actually can't sleepwalk through this process anymore. If we say we value these things, we're going to have to start doing the things that would demonstrate we value them.
That's so interesting. Hey,
Yeah,
like,
and I get
my experience on my side of it is this is sick. Let's do it. Like, what are we gonna get after?
Yeah.
That's how I feel through the process.
Yeah.
But it's obviously
There's
like the way you
heaps of that.
experience
It's
it.
pleasure and pain.
Yeah.
It's pleasure.
But
It's
no, I'm
pleasure
not-
and pain. It's
it's
just
just kinda-
as a human.
Yeah. And I guess that's probably the end part of that conversation where we talk about like what's underneath this, what's driving you type thing, where you start to go, no, that's what it's about. Yeah, that's cool to know. Sorry, mate. I'm hijacked the interview. I just had to ask that.
No. Well, I say headlock because if you have been in that moment where you felt like you were about to tap or you couldn't get out or you were like truly stuck and then you fought your way out of that, that's kind of what it feels like when you come out of the session and you start putting the pieces together. You're like,
Yeah.
we weren't trapped at all. We were trapping ourselves. Yeah, that like towards energy is very, very real. But the more I study it, the more I understand we need the pleasure and pain. And as human beings, we need to learn how to use both to get what we want.
Well, I guess
And
just from behavioral economics,
in the immediate term and macro. Yeah.
Just from a behavioral economics point of view, not to get too nerdy here, but just human beings are
Nerd
out. Loss aversion, like not having something. The reason I emphasize time is because I want you to feel that loss aversion, and humans are a lot more motivated to move away from pain than they, like measurably more motivated to move away from pain than they are pleasure. But that doesn't mean I think you have to have both. You need to have a clear picture of where you're going, and you have to have this little gut check moment where you're like, what am I fucking around for? Like, why am I half doing this? I haven't actually decided. I've said that I've decided. I said that I want to do these things. I'm going to try to do these things. There's no try. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. And that doesn't mean that you're getting the results from day one, but you're either doing in earnest or you're dabbling. And you need to confront that fact, because the difference between doing and dabbling is achievement. All you need is time working for you then. Like I said, if you're really honest with yourself and you sat back and reflected for a second, anything you in earnest wanted to achieve, you didn't dabble with it. You jumped in and did it. And it was messy and it was confusing in the beginning, and you worked through that kind of messy middle part, but you had that commitment. And as you started to display the courage required to go and try and actually try and fail and learn and go through that OODA loop, that's when capability develops. Confidence is a result of that. Consistency comes after that, and compounding comes after that. So commitment, courage, capability, confidence, consistency, compounding. It always happens in that order. Those 6 C's, that's always the structure of change.
Yeah, it's really easy to be interested in being healthy.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be interested. I think lots of people are interested. Making that leap to committed so you can go on that journey. Like that's what it's all about. If you are interested to hear more about that journey, episode 87 on Terry's pod, Money Minded, is where we break down our story on that. So, if you are interested, feel free to check that sucker out.
88 as well, mate. That's the one you and I did around decisions.
Decisions, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That is like a legacy piece for the kids, that one, mate. That's ultimately how you create the life you want. So, if you are at all curious or you're really kind of thinking, I need to get to that point of commitment around my health, episode 88. of Money
Yep.
Minded is an absolute banger. It's a different context. It's the other life energy, the financial life energy, but the same principles apply. And the amount of people in my life that have actually already thanked me for that episode is incredible. So it's a banger. That was fun, mate. That was a real fun one to record.
That one's just about like decisions and the power of decisions. And once you see that, you can't unsee it, right? Like if you've got, I don't know what the analogy is here, like, but like the Infinity Stone or whatever it is in the cartoon comics where like you've got the superpower where you can create whatever you want and you're in control of the universe type thing. Or maybe it's I think we gave the analogy of the ring, the ring in Lord of the Rings where once you've got this ring and you basically run the universe. Decision is that for you. Like every decision is your power to create. It's an act of creation. It's actually an act of creative destruction. It's how you build the identity of the person that you need to become in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish, which is, might be a good segue, mate. So we talked about identity before, didn't we?
We did talk about identity. I was actually going to move on to the disdain for the rat race, but that's actually, let's tie that in. If I was to kind of summarize an aspect of your identity that I love and I'm really gravitated to, it is your disdain for the rat race. Where did that come from? And how has that kind of disdain for life on a treadmill helped you create a life that you seem very happy, enjoying and getting the most out of?
This is like therapy, this interview.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
going to go back to my mum.
You're giving
again.
me. Are you? Yeah, okay.
It's
That's the thing, right?
Yeah. So
Or it's
what is it about the
very
rat race?
congruent with.
What is it about the rat race? What is the rat race? The rat race is an unthinking herd mentality where you take somebody else's word for it, you follow the crowd, and ultimately you take no responsibility for your life. That's what religion is. That's what it is. And so, again, I'd probably have to just bring it back to that. Like it's like, I'm not saying, all religious people are bad or whatever, but the way that religion is practiced and the way that I saw it practiced, it's like lemmings off a cliff. Basically, people just sleepwalking to their death. And I think when I came into the world of personal finance and I got super interested in it, I just noticed a very similar pattern where people become ideological and dogmatic about certain doctrines, passive income investing, shares versus property, a barefoot investor, like that's the only way type thing. And everyone's got their sort of their religion and they've got their God. And they are abdicating responsibility for their results in their life to somebody else's doctrine, somebody else's advice. But the thing is, if the person's never met you, then how do they know what's best for you? Like you can't know. Only you can know that. And a lot of the time, what I notice, and again, parallels here with health, parallels here with personal finance, so many. Anything that I would term a prescription, it has to, by its very nature, delete, distort, and generalize key aspects of you in order for it to be broadly applicable and easily sellable to everybody. And there's something in my mind that just breaks when I hear that, when I see that, because I'm just like, you are capable of so much more. If you just take the time, if you just take the time to really think, observe your own outcomes, and make a study of success for yourself, you'll figure out. And again, like my background's sport, right? And I promise you, not one individual who ever achieved their potential to the highest level ever did so by listening to people who told them what to do. They took advice from experts, but they integrated that advice to figure out how to make it work for them. And those two things are just so different. One of them is an active learning process, and the other, you're just a passive receiver of information. And the longer that you are passive in any process, you just cannot expect to achieve anything of any merit if you're just mindlessly following someone's advice. And I think that's why the psychology piece with money and with health is so important. And I know it's not mass market. Mass market is that. Mass market is the prescription. It's so much easier to sell easy.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested in that. I want to see people do things they didn't think they could do. I don't want to see people do the average thing. I want to see people reach their potential. And that's probably cost me a lot of money, to be honest. But I don't care.
Mate, as far as health goes, like, let's be honest, that easy pathway is leading to plenty of disastrous outcomes. I just feel like I'm surrounded by people that I care about, just walking off or towards that cliff on a bus called Easy Street, just doing what society has put in front of us, really not aware at all of the implications of the decisions that they're making or not wanting to own them. And it actually really pisses me off because I just think just a little bit of education, a little bit of understanding, there's no way you would keep making those kind of choices and decisions.
You know what? Do you know what?
For us, it's a
Like, I feel I get so angry for the people in the middle who want something different, but fall for these seductive shortcuts. Cause it's like, if you're completely ignorant, right? And it's never, you don't care at all. Like, it's kind of like whatever, like you're ignorant. So you don't know what you don't know. Whereas the person who is stuck in the mire of all these prescriptions, the tragedy for me is that they're not spending any less energy. They're actually probably spending more energy to try to solve this problem than this person who just thinks for themselves. And the reason why is because all their energy is spent in transition and consumption. I'm so busy consuming information and transitioning from this shortcut to that shortcut to this prescription to that prescription. The aggregate of all my energy probably far exceeds the person who just stopped and went, I'm going to now make a study of this and start paying attention to what matters and approach it in a very deliberate way, deliberately practice it, work my way up that learning ladder. I think that person gets there a lot quicker because you're tapping into that compounding, right? It's that geometric law of progression. If you line up all your dominoes, you can start with the smallest domino. And I guarantee you now, I don't work harder for my health than the person I saw on the treadmill last night destroying themselves. I'm in the gym loving it. And I get home, I add 2-3 packets of Doritos. Like, whatever. Now, that's not because I don't have a great, like, I'm 40, right? So I can't afford to eat a whole bunch of crap, but I do know what works for me. And I do know within certain bounds what I can and can't do. And that's because I've made a study of what works for me. Whereas I see these people in the gym absolutely destroying themselves, creating a very unhealthy relationship with exercise. They're not like if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it for long. Like you got to figure out a way to enjoy the thing. And there's activities that are intrinsically enjoyable to you that, you know, you and I will have a conversation, you know, every other week or so. And as soon as I get on the phone, I just go outside and we might have a chat for an hour and a half, but I'm walking the whole time. And so there's little things like that just compound over time, those little habits where I just know like that kind of works for me. And I know if I've trained already that day, then I know roughly I can consume something like 3,500 calories throughout that day and just maintain my body weight. And because I consume less than 1,000 calories most days, that means that at nighttime, 3 packets of Doritos is still me in deficit. I probably need to eat more at the end of that. Right. So I'm not like, I don't have this like punitive relationship with that kind of food anymore. And in the past, I would have been like, I shouldn't have done that. And I'll be on this like pendulum type scenario. And so it's just interesting to me to watch that. And it's just such a tragedy, right? I see those kind of people. I'm like, dude, you're working way harder than I am. It's like, you know, if you're a builder, you know where to hold the hammer, right? If you're not a builder, you hold it right up towards the head and you see those people are trying to bang that. They're working so much harder than someone who just holds it at the end of the hammer and they use the leverage of the hammer.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I want to pull on a thread here, mate, because I feel like the greatest tool we have on the topic of hammers is identity. It's categorically a human superpower that we just don't at all, like as a society, leverage anywhere near enough. As kids, we're fascinated by superheroes and identity and myth and story that comes with them. We don't use it anywhere near enough as adults. Look, if I was to ask you the question, how would you help someone tap into the identity or the power of identity? How would you answer that?
The first thing I mentioned before, prospection, like your ability to project forward into the future. The more real you can make that, that's how you start building a new identity, because there's something called conviction bias. And you mentioned before that when you and Brooke finished that session, you're like, what are we doing? We've got to start making these decisions. We've got to make this sort of stuff happen, that sort of thing. What is going on there in your brain is that we don't achieve what we can't see. But as soon as we can see it, because literally seeing is believing. Seeing is believing. And what that means is the moment I make it real enough for you that I can paint that picture, like, so this just 2 days ago when I sat down and did this with this couple, same thing. I'm like, that's happening. It's actually just a matter of time now. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm like, that's going to happen.
It's happening.
And they were like, fuck, we don't know either, but that's happening. And so when you talk about identity, what essentially is happening there is that we've used prospection. We've created a real enough picture. I can see myself living that reality. And now I have the commitment required to go and do what's like there's the payoff and the price, right? If I can see and feel the payoff, then I'll pay the price. But if I can't see the payoff, I won't pay the price. And what happens in that moment is you go, the price is worth it. So all the things we weren't doing, we're going to now start doing. Those are the things we're going to start putting into place. And it's actually in the process, the pursuit of that ideal, that you start building the version of you that accomplishes that. And I think this is where most people get stuck, right? they refuse to project forward into the future because they project their current identity into the future and they say, I can't do that. And I'm like, no bullshit. I know, because if you could do it, you would have already done it. But we're not talking about you that's sitting across from me. We're talking about the you that you will become in that pursuit, because who you are, your identity is fundamentally, it is the stack of all the decisions you've made to get to here. You created your current identity, just like you can create the next one that's required to achieve that goal. So why are we bullshitting ourselves and making out like who you are now is who you will be? It'll only be that way if you want it to be. Your identity is just a construct. It's just a story. And when people don't believe me, what I get them to do is to look backwards, right? So I had a chat with a guy who's a physicist, came through our program, and like very, very well-educated, PhD, university, got a scholarship, one of the most prestigious universities over in Europe, and then now works here in Australia. And he's like literally a rocket scientist. And he's like stuck. But he's like, I've always wanted to start my own business and I've always wanted to test myself, and academia is just so flat and boring and I'm sick of the politics of it and blah, 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 blah. And I sort of had this conversation with him and he's like, oh, that all sounds interesting, but I just don't see it. And I was like, well, okay, let's go backwards then. And I said, you told me that you came from a poor town. You were not only were you the first person in your family to finish high school, but you went through to uni, but you didn't just go to uni. You got a scholarship to the most prestigious institution in Europe. Question: when you decided that's what you wanted to do, did you know how you were going to do it? He's like, no. And I go, were you actually capable of doing it when you decided to do it? He's like, no. And I go, so why are you insisting on having those two things be true now? Why would you stop your own growth and development? And he was like, I don't know. And I go, neither do I. So let's stop bullshitting ourselves. Like, if you want to do it, you'll do it. 3 weeks ago, he sent me an email and he raised 200 grand from a global VC fund to start a tech startup for academia. And that's what he wanted to do. Yeah. And he said, how is this possible? And I said, exactly how I told you. Like,
you saw it. Right. You helped him see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, you can't convince me now that that's magic or it's fluffy or it's, oh, that's a coincidence or anything like that. It's not. It's actually just the way your brain works. And part of this, I think, and maybe this is part of where the headlock comes in, right? Because, you'll bullshit yourself to protect yourself from the idea of failure. But I won't let you bullshit yourself. So when you sit in the room across from me, I'll just sit here in silence and wait for you to tell me what you really want. And then you'll give me a vague, superficial sort of version of, oh yeah, it'd be nice to do this and it'd be great to do this. And I go, that's great. But what would that look like? And you go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how would you know that you'd accomplish that? And the degree to which you can get into the detail with me tells me whether or not you care about it. If you just want to stay up here, you probably don't care about it that much. But if you try that for yourself, I think you just let yourself off the hook. And I think that's where a coach is so handy, right? You want someone sitting across from you who sees more in you than you see in you. And I think that's part of it, where you sort of, that person invalidates your own doubt. And so I just sit there and I just say, what do you mean? Like, you can do anything you want if you really want to. Doesn't mean you can do everything. But again, just go back in your life and say, anything you really want to make happen, you just figured out how to make it happen. Didn't you? You actually just reshaped reality.
I just remember walking out and thinking to myself, spent all my time as an athlete learning how to visualize. Like before every race, before every golf shot, it was really deliberate, really clear, part of the routine. Even to the extent where, you would visualize, how were you packing your bag the night before? Where was the cap? What did you eat for breakfast? What was the trip like to the pool? How did you feel in the warm up? We just don't use that at all. Like, generally speaking, 99% of the population, to actually bring about the life that we want, to help us, as you say, see what we are going to be. And it blows me away that it's just not used more widely, because it's so bloody powerful. If it's good enough for Tiger Woods before he goes and bombs 350 down the fairway, and he does it, for him, maybe 60 times if he's playing really well around, maybe 59, why would we not use that power every single day? The goosebumps that I had, it's just, you had me visualizing training with my boys. And so obviously they'd got to an age where, they may or may not get this bug. Like, I don't care that much. But if one of them gets this bug and wants to go and train and better themselves physically, I want to be there with them. I want to impart the knowledge, the wisdom that I have. But more importantly, I know how much fun that is. If you could take me back to being a 14-year-old kid, picking up weights for the first time, eventually for me, it happened a lot later, but starting to actually get testosterone in your system and gain strength. And like those times are mad. They're magic. And I want to be not like a witness to that. I want to like be a part of that.
Yeah.
Intricately to the extent that obviously they want me and whatever. But like, man, when they're like, Dad, today we're going to go and bench press 2 plates. I'm like, yes, we are. And I'm still going to be doing that with you. So let's go.
Yeah.
That
I
just
remember
was
you
like,
saying that.
man,
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Man, but it was obviously so much more than that particular moment. But I hold on to that every single time I'm walking into the gym now. I literally remember and rehearse and see myself, and I'm like, "You're training for the time when Cooper and Cody are ready to rock and roll here, and you're gonna be able to hold your own." Like, it's so powerful, powerful. So like, just change everything. So
it's funny because my little fella Smith he's doing gymnastics and he's doing like development squad gymnastics and things, and he needs to train and things. So I'm teaching him how to train at the moment. And every morning we're doing our push-ups together and things. I've set up a gym for him, and I said to him the other day, I'm like, dude, I can't wait till you can come to the gym with me. And he's like, am I going to get to go? I was like, fucking oath, mate.
Yes.
So yeah, it won't be. I don't know what the minimum age is, but it won't be too far. He's 7 now. Surely won't be too long.
Yeah. 10 maybe?
I should ask.
Yeah, it might be sooner than you think. On the topic of decisions, you and Elise recently made a decision to compete in a challenge for your health. As someone that's worked in elite sport for at least a decade, who understands intricately how to get healthy, what the hell was that decision all about? Because you're the last person I know that actually needed to go and sign up to a challenge to get healthy.
Again, not need, want. So probably a few things, right? Like, like everyone, we're dads, and once you have one kid too, you have your second kid. I remember you saying you're having your second, you had Cody, and you're like, oh, this is different.
Right.
It's a different thing. So I had twins, and like that just absolutely all your routines just out of whack, and you're literally just fighting to get your routines back over a period of time, and you get your way through. And I remember like couple of years back, I was 23 after 2023. I think it was just maybe 22 or post COVID. We took a holiday and I saw a picture of myself on that holiday and it just didn't match my self image. Like it didn't, I was like, who the fuck is that? It's not you. And we talk about discomfort. I was like, oh shit. Like I got to do some work. I need to get back in good nick. But I mean, I kept up to the best part I could. I still had a training habit, but nutrition was the thing that, like, when you're younger, I was always been fit and active and that sort of thing. You can get away with whatever because you've got so much testosterone in your veins. But then, like, as the kids came along, you got all the kids' food and stuff, and you just, all those routines and all that thought and everything. Just, I was like, whatever. I'm just doing what I can and getting through, and food's energy and that sort of thing. And I just was like, so I've been training all the way through, and I've kept up a training habit, but I don't really look like that. And this is just my own standards. And I'm like, I don't like that. And so I'm going to get back in good shape. And so I did. And in about 11 weeks, I lost about 8.5 kilos. Didn't even think I had 8.5 to lose, but I did. And so I did that, lost that weight. I was like, yeah, cool. That's fine. Lost the weight. And then just slowly drifted back over the course of the next sort of 18 months. To where I was, and I was like, oh, okay, there's more for me to learn here. I'm like, yeah, I've been in elite support and that sort of thing. I work with nutritionists and that sort of thing, but there's maybe another layer for me to get. And more importantly, I need to reset my norms. I need to reset my norms. My norms have changed in a way that's obviously not conducive to how I want to look and how I want to feel. And so how do I reset the norms? And so that was like one part of the equation. The other part of the equation was my wife and I just wanting to do a project together. I think, if you're on a health journey, for example, and you're doing it yourself and your partner's not invested in that with you, I would bet against you more often than not. I'd say, too bad.
Same.
Doesn't matter. You could be the best, most disciplined person ever, but social gravity is going to bring you back to where you are now. And when my wife said that she wanted to do it, because I said to I knew that I could do it, but I was like, if we do it together, those odds are completely different. And just because I know a lot doesn't mean I know everything. Maybe there's more for me to learn, right? Just because you're a coach doesn't make you uncoachable. Like on the weekend, I went to a money psychology workshop. Like, I was talking to someone there and they're like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I work in this. They're like, what are you doing here? And I go, learning.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? What do you think?
All there is to learn.
And like, I'm not interested in being knowledgeable. I want to be an expert. And an expert never stops learning. You don't you're not a full cup. You're always getting better. Anyway, so that was part of it. I'm like, well, maybe there's more for me to learn and I want to change my norms. And one of the best ways to create a change is to signal to yourself how important it is to you. So health is always a value of mine, but this had drifted in this way. And this health challenge cost us, I calculated it wasn't just like the actual cost of the challenge itself, but then all the food and supplements and everything that sort of came along with it was in excess of about $5,000. And the interesting thing about that is that money is a measure of value. And when you put money against something, you are telling that person how much you value, and you're also telling yourself how much you value it. So if you don't want to spend any money or any time on the thing, you actually don't value it. If you want to value something, then put money against it, because now you want to get a return on that investment. So that's the reason why I did it. And I did learn a bunch of stuff, actually. I learned about the power of tracking macros. So the first time I lost a bunch of weight, I just tracked calories and learned like what foods are expensive and what food, and that I lost weight. But this time I actually got in really good nick. Like I got in better nick than when I was pre-kid. And like my body
What was that?
So you can track calories, right? And I think that's valuable for learning. How dense are some foods? I use the term like expensive. If it's an expensive food is something that's very small, but is very calorie dense, you go, fuck, that's an expensive food. And a cheap food is where it's like, actually, it's got a lot, like it's actually filling. There's a lot, it's volume. It's going to fill up in your stomach, but it's low calorie. So for example, like cottage cheese.
That's an interesting frame.
Yeah. So cottage cheese is a cheap food. I can eat a lot of it and I can feel relatively full because it's very high in protein, but it's also quite voluminous. So I can feel very full and I can eat more food, eating foods like that, but actually consume less calories. And so I learned a lot about that side of things with this health challenge because I was tracking those sort of things and I was tracking my macros, the protein, the carbs and that, and hitting my macros, and more specifically around my training. So I was in a deficit. I lost weight, but I gained muscle at the same time. And when I look at what I lost this time, I lost less weight, but I was in I showed you the picture of last time versus this time. Last time I looked like fucking Justin Bieber. Yeah. And this time I was like, oh, fuck, I'm in good nick. I felt like I was,
Chris Hemsworth at your heart out.
Well, I don't know about that, but,
similar body shapes.
Yeah. But like, I felt like I was, late 20s type thing. I was in the gym lifting like that and I had that, I still got that shape, which is awesome. And so I just learned a lot.
You're not tracking, are you?
No, I'm not tracking anymore, and I've maintained the weight.
Yeah,
and like
shape.
We went to this wellness center yesterday, and Elise was getting all jealous. All these girls are looking at you.
There's a moment of truth.
But no, she was just saying, she was like, oh man, I just got a bit self-conscious. But I don't know, like I did a few things for me, and I think there's a few things in that, right? Like if you haven't done what you want to do, then put money against it. Because it's a signal to yourself as much as somebody else of how important it is to you. And you can kind of mindfuck yourself into that. Because if you're the kind of person that values money and you want to value health, then spend money on your health, because now you'd be like, I got to get a return on that. And that is going to channel all of your resources. And it's going to help you tap into all the willpower, all the discipline, all the stuff that you haven't been doing. You'll suddenly find it.
Real quick. Because as you say, you just sent a message to yourself that you care about this.
Yeah. Exactly.
Did you learn anything else on that challenge, mate? Was there anything else that came out of that where you're like, oh, this was really profound. How did I not know this? Or this is going to stick with me for the rest of my life. I know standards was a big thing that kind of came, like built while you were doing the challenge, but was there anything else that kind of sprung to mind?
This is just kind of harking back to time in sort of elite sport, like goals and standards. I guess like the reason I did this health challenge was standards. Like I'd slipped below my own standard and I was like, that needs to come back into where it should be. And I think, these are really valuable behavioral tools. A goal is a great learning thing. Like having a really clear goal and saying, I want to achieve this by when, and getting super clear on what that is, that's going to actually start to train and hone all your energy, your attention, your awareness around that thing. And it can help you rally those resources and it can help you reset the norms. And I put myself in that environment, like I said, because I wanted to reset my norms. The cool thing about this challenge was that there was money on the line, similar to your mechanic, right? Where I could win money. And I was like, how good would it be to win that money? And so that gave me sort of an extra push and helped me kind of hone and train my attention around that. And so I think goals are really, really, really good for that. But a goal is I would call it a short-term thing. It's a short-term thing. There's going to be an end point to the goal. And you got to ask yourself what's going to happen at the end of that goal. Because you don't want to be in a situation like, my first time around where I was like, hey, I need to lose weight. Boom, I lost all the weight. And then just drift back to where you were. You want to shift and change your identity. And so for me, I'm like, all right, I didn't actually have a number on my standard before, but it did kick me into gear. But now I put numbers on my standards. And so I'm 6 months. No, is it 6 months? I'm about four months off that challenge now. I'm the same weight when I finished. And the reason why is because when I finished the challenge, I said my standard is 87. So if I go above 87 kilograms, then that gets me into action. I've got to go back. Whereas before I didn't have a standard. I just kind of was like, oh, I'm a dad. I'm just getting through. I train all the time. I had standards around training. I didn't have standards around body composition because it had never been a thing. But now what I've done is I've just installed standards around the body composition. So I know there's two actually. So it's 87 and it's 93 around the waist, because waist is the health measure. Is it interstitial fat? So I know that from a health point of view. Yeah. So I'm like, if I'm above 93, then it triggers me to have a bit of a focus, and I'm going to set some goals. But if I'm below that, I'm just living my life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I know you're obsessed with systems. It makes heaps of sense. In addition to standards, I know you're obsessed with systems. It would be absolutely remiss of me not to probe into systems in some capacity here. What systems do you use for health? And what systems do you think, anyone looking to get healthier should think about understanding more? Not what they should do. We don't like shoulds, but like if they want to, what are the systems that you're using?
Yeah. So the point of a system, particularly when we're talking about pursuing a goal, is simply to tighten the feedback loop. So, because remember I said before how your brain learns from outcomes. If you can't see your outcomes because you're not tracking them and you're not actually aware of what's happening, then you can't course correct towards the goal effectively. So it's not enough to just say, I have a goal. You then have to build an infrastructure of information systems that are coming to you so that you're continually updating that approach. And I think this is where a lot of folks fall down, is they kind of go, I didn't work. And I'm like, you didn't track anything. And they go, I don't want to be a slave to tracking. And I'm like, you're not a slave to tracking. That information is your fuel for progress. And you're denying yourself the information, the insight you need to adjust your approach to win. So like, just reframe how you're looking at it. You're not a slave to the numbers. The numbers are your tool. I'm not a slave to numbers. Like I said, I don't track anything now. But if I go over those numbers, I'll be like, okay, I want to just get into gear for a few weeks and I'm just going to keep an eye on this. But I still won't track. I'll just say, I know what I need to eat to sort of be in a bit of a deficit. I'm just going to do that. And if that doesn't work, I'm just going to track. And I'll do it for another month and get back to where I need to go. Because I know that I want to live really well in my 50s. Yeah. Keeping in shape through my 40s is how to do it. I watch people, you've probably seen the same, Mitch, like this is the decade, I'm about to turn 40. And this is the decade where you see people just go with two different directions. Some people age very quickly now and just go off a cliff.
Yeah.
And other people.
Man, I'm seeing it everywhere.
Yeah. And so that's why the focus for me, I'm like, yeah, I think it's so, so important. So in terms of systems, what do I use now? Or do you want to know what I was using in the challenge?
Let's go in the challenge. I'm curious. I'm curious in the challenge and what's stuck.
Yep. So look, you got two things. You got lead and lag measures, lead and lag inputs and outputs. And so for example, a lead measure is like my calories consumed. What did I consume today? And a lag measure is what do I weigh? I can't control what I weigh today, but I can control what I consume today. And so if you think about this, you got to think about, okay, what are the lead measures that I can track each day to win the day? Winning is I did track my body weight daily. What else did I track? I tracked all my lifts. So I was making sure that I was incrementally increasing the load on my lifts. And I had a cycle that I built out a cycle that was in line with the challenge. So I knew the challenge was 8 weeks. And I said, that's my weight cycle. I'm starting here on all these lifts and I expect to end up here on all these lifts. Yeah. And I'd sort of periodize that as well so that I knew that like I was going to be
loads in there. How good.
Yeah. So I knew that I was going to be sort of, at the start, usually I would start quite light on a cycle, really light, but I actually started a little bit heavier because I wanted to get into like the intensity piece of that in the middle. And so I thought about that a little bit and I tracked all my lifts there. What else did I track? I tracked my total deficit. Now I think this was a massive one. And not many people, I don't think I've seen anyone do this, but because I knew what my intake was and what my output was every day. So, and probably just let me step back. So I said before I was tracking my calories in, I was also tracking my calories out. So I used an Apple Watch. And so I tracked every day how many total calories that I burn. Now, is Apple Watch perfect? No. It just needs to be close enough and it needs to be consistent enough. I'm not getting hung up on that. But what that allowed me to do is every day track the difference between what I consumed and what I expended in. And then I would take that deficit and I created like a cumulative graphic in my phone where I would put it in every day and it would calculate the accumulated deficit. and I tracked 7,700 calories per kilogram of fat. So if you want to lose 1 kilogram of fat, you need to be in a deficit of 7,700 calories, right? And I wanted to lose at least 7 kilos during this time. So 7 times 7,700 was like 49,000 something, or 52,000 or something like that. And so basically what I was doing is every day I was seeing this circle fill up. And I was like, if I'm winning every day, then that circle's filling up. And if I lose a day, the circle goes backwards. Remember what I said before about loss aversion and people hate losing? Mate, if you've done like 2 weeks and you're killing it and then you see your circle go backwards, you go, fuck, that's not happening tomorrow. That is not happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that, I think that just from a game mechanics point of view really helped me as well, because yes, I knew what winning the day looked like, but I looked at like my total compounded effort. That gave me like an index or a proxy for what's my total compounded effort look like. Does that make sense? I know that's a little bit abstract in terms of what I'm describing, but yeah.
It does to me. I mean, it does to me.
Yeah.
You understood exactly how much fat you wanted to lose during that time. There it is. Break it down. Chase that target every single day. See it compound. See that grow. Get yourself motivated every single day to close that loop and have fun doing it. Doing things that you actually enjoyed. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
The other thing that I learned, you asked me what I learned in there, was just the importance of the protein macro target, just the thermic effect of protein.
Especially as we're getting older.
Yeah, like it's a bit of a double whammy with protein, right? Because it's you're maintaining your muscle synthesis. So for me, I actually wanted to gain muscle whilst I was losing weight, and so I upped my protein intake, and I was regularly doing somewhere between 160 and 200 grams of protein a day, which is high. But the benefit of that is that the thermic effect of that much protein. Yeah, I'm not a big guy, but the thermic effect of that much protein, like my body's working really hard to burn that, to process that food as well. So it's actually adding to my calorie expenditure, and just the double whammy of that, and seeing how important that was, like with the change in my shape from last time when I was just tracking calories to this time actually being religious around macros and tracking that protein every day. I'm like, look at the difference in like body shape, but also it was so much easier for me to hit my calorie target, so much easier. Whereas when you're eating a lot of food, like if you want to eat snakes, for example, just eat like 3 handfuls of snakes. There's half your calories gone for the day. You're going to be hungry as shit, right? And so, it's that kind of thing that showed me. And the other thing that I learned too was I do really well when I front load protein. So my mornings, I'll end up having like 48, 50 grams of protein in a 350 calorie smoothie. And that goes me to like 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, that means I can actually have like quite a solid sandwich, like 600-700 calorie type, quite big sandwich. And then by the time I get to dinner, now I've got like 1,600 calories up my sleeve. So what does 1,600 calories look like? It looks like a good main meal. It looks like a nice dessert and probably a few snacks on top of it. So when people kind of come around or whatever, like, Jesus Christ, like you eat a lot. And I'm like, well, not really. I just eat this way. And they're like, how are you doing this? And I'm like, well, by the time I get to like 5 o'clock, I only had like 1,000 calories for the day. And I know that to maintain, I can be like 3,000. So I can eat 2,000 calories at 5 o'clock and still be maintaining my body weight. And if you're having relatively good food, that's a lot of food. And that's how I like to feel. I like to feel, if I feel full at 7 o'clock, I'm not going to overeat. What I learned was if I haven't eaten by 7 o'clock and I'm hungry there, I'm going to overeat. And so now everything's oriented around like 5 o'clock dinner time, and actually woof it down, have a big meal, eat like a man, and then like just let yourself, like at 7:30, you're not feeling hungry because you just had the big meal, and then you can go to bed. You're actually fasting. For me, I'm fasting from 5:30 through till 8 o'clock the next day. And I'll train fasted and then have that big protein shake, and I'm in this kind of cycle again. So it's actually super sustainable for me.
I don't know if you've tracked your sleep data doing that as well, but I guarantee you're sleeping better by eating earlier and bigger and allowing your digestive tract to just clear.
I reckon you're right.
Lovely compound effect there, mate.
Yeah.
I have a question for you on the lessons that you have taken from lifting, because I know you lift and we've spoken about those habits, and how you've applied them to the Cash Flow Co. Top 5 lessons that you've taken from training, call it training macro, and applied it to the business.
Good question. 5 of them. That feels like a lot.
Question to put you on the spot. Well, give me the top one. If you've got one, I'll take one.
Just repetition. So, I think James Clear did a good job of this with habit. establishing the habit of lifting is more important than what you're lifting, because you're going to want to get results over time.
Right.
But if you don't have the habit of lifting, it just doesn't matter. Like, who cares if you came in and you lifted heavy for 3 weeks and then for 3 months you did nothing? That actually doesn't matter. I might have expended a lot less effort during that period of time, but trained 3-4 days a week. I'm going to be better off than you. And so we say the same thing with cash flow, right? Like, we don't care if you save. We're not even about like what you save. It's just about how you spend. If you spend super intentionally in line with what you value, then you will be saving. And very similar with this, we're here to establish new habits and build an identity, and you build the identity through your actions, your outcomes. I'm the kind of person who does this. You can't build that identity without the evidence to look back on and say, if you're going to call yourself a lifter, you need to be fucking lifting a lot. So like, when it comes to the parallels between the two, it's just like, how do you establish that habit? And like I said at the start of this conversation, why do I go in and lift even when I don't? Like, yesterday I felt like junk, absolute junk. And I missed, we went out of our routine, and Elise took me to this place down in Torquay and things. And that's out of my routine. And I missed the morning lift. And I was like, I'm just going to go lift at 4:30. Do I feel like lifting at 4:30 on that day after not sleeping for a couple of days? No, doesn't matter. Doing it anyway. It's not, I think, I need to learn this in more areas of my life, but I think I've nailed it with when it comes to health. It's not how you feel that matters. It's what you do that matters. It's not how you feel. It's what you do that matters. And it's what you do consistently that matters. Because what happens is you build this version of yourself that's just like, I don't let how I feel dictate what I'm doing today. I just do it. Hopefully that is specific enough.
Yeah. Yep. No, I love that. That's epic. I've got 3 more questions for you. The best books that you would recommend, they don't have to be health, fitness related. They can be like quasi, but if you were to recommend 3 books to help people with their health, what would be those 3 books and why?
I guess, like, back to what we said at the start around identity and prospection and all that sort of stuff. If you want to delve into the really understanding that, the power of that and figuring that out, which I think is the 80-20 here, because like everything we're talking about tactically here, it's still not hard to do. Like, it's not like it's not complex. The question is why you're not doing it. And if you want to really understand that better, I think the book Psycho-Cybernetics is really interesting because it talks about self-image a lot, and you don't act out of line with your self-image. So if you don't see yourself as that kind of person, you won't do the thing. But how do you change your self-image? You need to use prospection to see yourself, a different version of you, and then start moving in that direction. And so I think the second book I would suggest to do that is called Be Your Future Self Now. That's by a psychologist, Ben Hardy. And I think between those 2 books, you can get a real sense of like, yeah, I get it. Like, self-image is a thermostat. The thing that worked for me is that training habit built a self-image for me about who I think I am and what I think is acceptable and my sort of standards. When I saw that photo, I was like, that doesn't line up with my self-image. And then the thermostat just brought me back to where I kind of could and should be. But how do you do that? How do you create that self-image? That's about prospection. That's about you just picking yourself up out of the present, pushing yourself into the future, and then creating this new version that you look at and you go, that's sick. How good would that be? That matters to me. I want that and I must do it. So I think those are 2 books. I'm trying to think if there would be a third.
There doesn't have to be. They're mad.
Yeah, that's probably
the
enough.
80-20.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you shared your philosophy from Zig Ziglar that you absolutely love, I'll share it. So ultimately you can have anything you want in the world if you'll just help other people get what they want. That's had a really profound impact on me, right? Obviously I want to live a life as healthy as possible, and I want to help other people enjoy the fruits of a healthy life. What impact has that had on you, and how does it shape you as a person?
I got rewarded as a coach, and I've always been rewarded by just working harder for other people's success than my own. The harder I worked for other people to see them succeed, the better I did. So when I first came across that quote, I was like, oh, that just resonates deeply with what I've experienced in my life. I got to the top of that field in coaching and sport because frankly, I was just obsessed. I was more obsessed about changing, helping other people change and improve and achieve their things than anybody else. And I know that might sound a little bit arrogant, but it's true. Like, not because I say that, it's because I was basically picked up and put in the position that I was put in. So I was the youngest performance coach in Australia at the time. I finished my degree. I was 23 years old, and then I went straight from university straight to the top level of sport. And the reason why is because all the way through university, I was working at the sub-elite level, interacting with the elite athletes at that kind of level. And I was doing that volunteering and I was spending all my time just frothing that, like learning the crafts, coaching. And I got to the bleeding edge of that career like quite quickly because of how obsessed I was with that, right? So if everybody uses bands and kettlebells, I promise you this, I was the first in Australia to actually start using that at an elite level. So I started doing like calisthenic stuff, rope climbs, bands, kettlebells, all that stuff. And all these athletes, elite athletes, were watching me do this stuff with our sub-elite guys, getting awesome results, and then playing with them on the weekends and going like, these guys are killing it. And they go to their managers and say, that guy there's doing stuff we're not doing. They're getting results that we're not getting. He's got to be here. That's the only reason I got to look in. I shouldn't have been there. I was 23 years old, dude. But like that was my experience. And when I got into those environments, I would just same thing. I'm like, how good is this? Now, 100% of my time, I just get to obsess over this thing. I don't have to have 3 jobs anymore. So all that, I was just a kid in a candy shop from that point of view. Now I'm like, I get paid to go and find the best people. And now I get paid to go and learn from the world's best running coach and all this sort of stuff. And so I'm just like, give it to me, you know? And everything I'm consuming and everything I'm doing, I'm sponging it all up and then figuring out how to apply it. I'm trying to figure out how to apply it with myself. And I was having this conversation with Alex Rance, who was like in the Hall of Fame he's been one of the best backs in the AFL. And one of the things he said to me, he's like, mate, I never came across a coach who was just so relentless. It's just like relentless. You're just like always trying something, always doing something. And I know at times you may just do some weird shit, but it's like 80% of the stuff by the time it got to us, like I could tell you'd really thought your way through it. And so he was just like, I was always pumped to see like which part was going to flow through to us, you know, because he's like, I was watching you do some weird shit. And then by the time it got to us, you're like, figured out how to make it work, you know? So yeah, I don't know. When I saw that quote the first time, I was like, that's been true for me. And it's what gets me going. There's something, like I said at the start, like there's a karma in me. There's this like karmic debt that I don't think I can ever repay, which is just like, you just got to help more people do more things that they don't think they could do. And I don't know, maybe it's tragic, but it kind of lights me up.
Well, thank you for that. And what a beautiful way to articulate your belief in the reps with that. So I don't think we could have articulated that any better. So there is one role that you play as a coach that I think is more important than all the others. That is coaching Smithy and India to become the epic humans that they want to be. I want to put this in a bow because there is a philosophy that you have that I think encapsulates so much about just helping people get on with the next thing. And I know that you are spending a heap of time helping Smith at the moment through, I'm going to absolutely botch this pronunciation, but Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the classic type. Can you give me a little bit of background on exactly what that is, how to say it properly, and how you are working with Smith to not have this be something that kind of gets him down, gets in the way for him? Because, man, I just love your approach to it, and I think the world needs to actually hear it.
Thanks, man. So Ehlers-Danlos, I think you said it right. Good work. It's a collagen deficiency, basically. So collagen is the glue in your body, and Smith's collagen doesn't work the way most collagen works. It's uber stretchy. Collagen's everywhere. Like it's in the joints, it's in the heart, it's in the brain, it's everywhere. And so it doesn't work the right way for Smith. And what that means is basically he doesn't have the tone and the control that a lot of other kids would have at his age. And also his skin is very brittle. It's like paper. Like it stretches and breaks like paper. And so like a small knock to him will be a huge bruise, and that's going to be a weeks long saga. And so that really restricts him in many ways. And he can't play contact sport or anything like that. And there's ways that it's exclusionary for him. But we wanted to make sure that he could see that just because it's a bit of a drawback in some ways, it can also be a superpower. And the thing about, I mean, there's 2 sides to every coin, right? For every gift, for every curse, there's a gift. And what is the gift in this curse? The gift is that he is hypermobile. And where is hypermobile on edge? Gymnastics. And what is good about gymnastics? Gymnastics is good because it's teaching control, strength, coordination, all the things that he needs to learn in order to be able to better manage his condition. But he also has hypermobility. So we got him into gymnastics relatively early and really affirmed him through that because we wanted him to be able to win in an arena, basically.
Yep.
And when he sort of got into that, we just did our best to, like I said, get him in there and affirm him and sort of say, you're really good at this. And well, not necessarily you're really good at this, but like you've got capabilities here and advantages that others don't. And the other thing that I like about gymnastics is it's an arena where you learn how to practice. And I said before, getting better at getting better. Unfortunately, like I feel like one of the most valuable things that no one ever gets taught is how to get better. Like I mentioned before, that OODA loop, the whole observe, orient, decide, and act thing. In a sense, like that's the core of everything. But deliberate practice, that's you going into every session with a goal and saying, I'm trying to achieve this thing. And now how do I observe the results of this thing? So I would am working quite closely with Smith to really go, all right, just make this a habit where you're like every session you're trying to get better at one thing. And how are we actually going to measure that? So I have really simple ways of doing it. But the thing about his condition is that sometimes it's really hard for him at the end of the day because he's lost all the tone. And that's the times when they run their training sessions at times. So he's finding it hard at times to stay focused and be able to do things the way they want him to do them. And the biggest block is not that. It's how he was responding to that feeling. He would be getting sort of emotional because he wants to do the thing really well, but he's just kind of like not able to do it. And one of the things that I noticed, I was working with some of the best athletes in Australia, is the difference between the best of the best and everybody else is actually how quickly they move on. So there's always these transition moments. There's the time between you did something and it went your way or didn't go your way, and then the next thing. And the people who are really good, they have a very collapsed time frame of that transition period. So for example, tennis, like Roger Federer recently put out a speech where he talked about how many points he'd lost en route to becoming a champion. He lost more points than he won. And so if you're going to get good at anything, you've got to get good at losing in order to be able to win, because it's your losing where you learn. And you're going to lose an awful lot if you're going to go in any direction anywhere. And so I'm trying to teach Smith that at the moment and saying, like, it's not about you clicking your fingers and being able to do the thing. It's actually about you being able to really quickly take on the information, move to the next thing, because you cannot get better in the past. You can't get better there. You can only get better in the future. So you need to take what you just learned and you need to be able to move to the next thing as quick as possible. And I said, if you can get that now, you'll be unstoppable, because other people won't get this, and other people with more talent don't get this. And so we just talked about the ability to be able to, what's called an anchor. And I think this is really important for anything you're doing, right? If it doesn't go your way, you need to be able to go very quickly, step out of the feeling of that, take the information and keep moving. And so I gave him this anchor of just saying, I just want you to go, I want you to speak in the third person to yourself. And there's some science behind this. It's because it gives you a level of metacognition when you speak in the third person. So Terry, do this. Terry, do this. Like elite athletes do this a lot because it's getting you out of your own self. And so my cue to Smith was like, whenever you notice this feeling cropping up, this is the trigger. When this feeling's cropping up where you're becoming emotional, that's the trigger that I want you to pay attention to. When that happens, then I want you to do this. Then I want you to say to yourself, Smith, shake it off, Smith. Smith, shake it off. And I want you to physically do the action of shaking it off. I want you to imagine that there's rain on the top of your shoulders, on the top of your t-shirt, and it's collected there, and there's droplets there, and you need to get it off. Shake it off, and say to yourself, Smith, shake it off, Smith, shake it off. And then, so we practiced that. I didn't just say do that. I said, let's practice it now. And I did it a few times. I was like, Terry, shake it off. And I was doing it. And we had a little bit of fun with it. And I was like, so cool. So you know how to do it? And he's like, yep, I know how to do it. Because there's motivation, there's ability, right? You need to make sure they actually know what to do. And then I just made sure that I spoke to his coach about it. And I said, because she was the one giving us the feedback that he was struggling with taking on new things and that sort of thing. And I said, I get it. I'll have a chat to him. And then, so I went back to her and I said, so just so you know, I want you to affirm this. When you see Smith doing this, you're going to see him do it. I want you to affirm it. And I want you to say to him, that's awesome, Smith. Your dad told me about this. And when you see him not doing it, I want you to remind him that anchor. You just use the word shake it off, and he'll know exactly what you mean. And, yeah. So anyway, so he's gone back into training and he's doing that. And then a couple of weeks later, his coach comes up and says, like, this has made an astronomical difference, because the amount of time spent in training now, trying to get back on track into training, she's like, I'm just spending so much less time trying to manage that part of the process. And I'm now able to spend so much more time helping him get better. And so I think, yeah, that's kind of what you were talking about in terms of that. What you wanted, yeah.
I just think it's so applicable to, yeah, absolutely. It's so applicable to life. To all of us, we all have those moments in some capacity, and having the ability to understand, okay, how am I going to reprogram this feeling? How am I going to use my physiology to help me think and feel differently in that moment? And ultimately, like at a baseline level, the process of getting healthy does look like heaps of zeros. It looks like day after day after day after day of feeling like, well, I'm still not where I want to get to. And maybe I had a packet of Doritos and I said I wouldn't. But shake it off, man, because tomorrow's another opportunity to get closer. and having the ability to not wallow and just to realize, let's just like in the Roger Federer vein, let's close the time between that impacting me and the next point. It's like, mate, that's everything in life. It is the process of winning because
No, you go.
no, to me, it's just such an invaluable concept to understand and to realize that you don't necessarily need Coach Terry to teach you that. You can actually work out how to do that yourself.
One little bit of nuance that I want to add to it is because I don't want to sort of get across the idea that like, you just forgive yourself and you just keep moving on and that's it. Because you can just keep repeating the same mistake, right? You got to learn from the mistake, and regret is such a powerful thing, right? Like, so that feeling, it's not that you want to like ignore that. You want to actually really pick up on that. So for example, the Doritos, right? Like, man, like I did everything right. And then just that last pack of Doritos, that cost me. If you kind of just like walk past that and go, shake it off, be fine. It's not quite as simple as just like go bang, just move past it. You need to allow yourself to sit in that feeling of discomfort for a second to learn from it. And so a tool to be able to do that is to mind the regret. What is the regret? What's it telling you? And the language pattern that I love to use is if only I had, fill in the gap with that. If only I had checked my macros before I did that, I might have made a different decision. If only I had made sure that they weren't in the house or they weren't visible to me, then I wouldn't have made that decision. If only I had communicated this more effectively to my partner so she didn't even buy this stuff, then I would have made that decision. So I think the shake it off part is like, cool, got the lesson, move on. And I think the if only language patterns are a really good way to be able to do that. Daniel Pink wrote an awesome book on the power of regret, and essentially it basically that.
Three.
Yeah.
We got our 3 in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
This has been an unreal conversation. I've loved it. I hope listeners have taken a stack of value out of this. There's so much there. So to summarize, which I'm not even going to try and do, I think you need to summarize the point you made off the very top. If you haven't made the changes that you want, you ultimately don't want it.
Yeah.
So, if you're interested in getting healthy, and you go, mate, sorry.
No, you go. You finish.
I was just going to say, Ollie, if you're interested in getting healthy, maybe it's time to commit because it's the only way it happens.
You don't want it because you haven't really thought about how cool it could get, how good it could be, what it would actually mean. You haven't let yourself sit in what success could look like. You can't see it, so you don't believe it. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you actually haven't really thought it through. Yeah.
What I would love to do, because I know you understand this better than most, either you or me is going to visualize a moment in the future where our health is paramount. I'd like to do it for you and help you actually see this. And I want you to describe, and we're going to describe together what this moment actually looks like and how this moment is going to inform the decisions you make this afternoon when we get off this conversation, tomorrow morning when your alarm goes off, and for the rest of time until this moment's actually realized. What is a moment in the future that you cannot wait to experience? Can you just give me a bit of color? Is there an experience, a trip, something that you've got in mind?
Yeah, I think I said it before. I think when I train in the gym with my son and maybe my daughter as well, she wants to, like taking him to the gym for the first time. Like that's something I can see in my mind, and that's something I can't wait to do.
Yeah. I know you've got travel plans. Is there something that time in the gym is going to empower with Smith in India beyond just the training in the gym? Is there? Yeah. I obviously know it's something that you want to do, so I am trying to get you to where I know you something in the future that I know you want.
Yeah, we made a decision to travel more domestically and do a bit more caravanning and stuff like that domestically in Australia when the kids are young. But we've got ambitions later on to see more of the world as a family. As an example, being able to ski or snowboard on the slopes, maybe in Japan or something, with the kids when they're at that age in another 5-6 years would be awesome. Be able to do those kind of things with them. And I always remember running around Central Park in New York when Elise and I got married in our honeymoon, and I'd love to take the kids on that run. That'd be awesome.
Man, that's mad. That's mad.
Yeah.
And the point is, you can see that, you can feel that, you can taste the pleasure of those moments.
Yeah, I can see in my head.
Which helps you pay the price tomorrow morning, this afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, like snowboarding on the slopes of Japan with my kids is something I can visualize. Running around Central Park, I can remember that and project myself into the future doing that with my kids. So yeah, no, that'd be sick, mate.
So when you helped me visualize that, I could see that the trajectory I was on, I wasn't going to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for plenty of people listening, if they're honest with themselves, that's exactly where they're at as well.
Yeah. So possible.
In beyond possible. Like, man, I had no idea I was capable of what I was capable of. I had a fair idea I could get in pretty good health and like really change the trajectory of my life. But like, I'm knocking on 40. I'm in better shape than I've ever been.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Well, you were maybe this health,
It's the best.
the health,
Vitality.
the challenge that I did, you were the inspiration for, because I was like, fuck, Mitch has got in such good nick. And there's something about like something we didn't discuss, and I apologize because I know we're wrapping this up, but like the power of community, like I said, change your norms, get into an environment of people. You know, that learning ladder, I said, have people that have been there and done it, have people that are doing it, and have people that are behind you. Just get yourself into a community of people where their norms are your goals. What they're doing normally, that's your aspiration. And social gravity, it's called mimesis. It's the way humans learn. It will literally drag you in that direction. So if you want to get big and strong, go and train with people who are big and strong. You want to get fit, get into a group of people who are fit and are training all the time. That is how to change your identity, because it's just how we're wired. We want to belong in that sense. So if you just change that environment, huge.
I love that, mate. My aspiration is for each cohort ultimately to feel like they are joining a premiership winning team. Every single person on that field wants to be the best player. They all want to win the Norm Smith, but they all ultimately know that by doing that, the team gets better, the expectations get better, the standards of our weakest player has to be here for that to happen. So yeah, that gets me very excited, mate, because ultimately the people coming through this experience are going to be doing things very differently, and they're going to need accountability partners. They're going to need to see other people normalizing those habits and celebrating in those wins together as a team. Yes, they're competitors, but ultimately you're going to win this thing together. So yeah, it's very well said, mate. You've put a bow in it, as always.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Well, if you have enjoyed that, and if you would like to learn more about Terry and his work, which is life-changing, it's the best. Money Minded, my favorite podcast. Even though I have my own, it's still my favorite at this point, and probably will be for a while. But hey, this is a labor of love, mate. I'm getting out my zeros, so bring it on.
Love it, mate. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. Enjoy, mate.
Okay, let's go.